Welcome to, welcome to Meet the Author Book Club here on the Reading Nook with Authors Alcove. I am your host, Agnes Wolfe, and this month we are going to dive into the intriguing world of Three Coins from a Dead Man's Pocket with Myrenne Mae. Wave, Myrenne. Tonight we'll be chatting about that novel, its characters, hearing insights, and just hearing what our hosts have thought about the book. I've already gotten to hear a few people's opinions on it, and they were all very positive. And then next month we have Victoria Clapton, right? Yep, there she is.
Yes.
She wrote the book Myth and Memento Mori, along with several other books, but we chose that one because it has kind of a Halloween theme. And anyway, so we're just going to get started. But before we get started, I would love to hear a little bit about Victoria's book. Can you just share with us what your book is about and what we should expect this month?
Absolutely. Of Myth and Memento Mori is a love letter to my family, to my great grandmother. My family come from Appalachia, and there's this story, this ghost story that has been passed down through my family about the knockers in the woods. Now, I must say, I took some liberties with that story. It wasn't near as spooky as I made it, but with this book, I made a standalone novel that's a paranormal romance that has all the cozy autumn vibes that I adore with a little bit of the spooky Halloween.
That's awesome. And we're going to actually meet the week of Halloween on October 29th at 8 p.m. I'm going to start switching all of our book clubs to 8 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. So that's 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And so that's when we're going to be talking about that. But before we get started, I also want to introduce our hosts. So first, since we've already introduced Victoria a little bit, she is Southern born and no stranger to writing. How many books have you published already?
18 and about 4 short stories and bigger novels too.
She's also multilingual, curious world traveler with a love for all creatures, especially cats, and has a passion for everything from Viking sagas to herbology. So Victoria, we're very excited to hear from you. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and what got you into the writing and reading world?
Oh, I'm a reader. I'm a heavy reader and have been reading since before I started kindergarten. And it's the same thing with writing. My mother handed me a crayon when I was a tiny child and said, go at it. And there are still books sitting in little boxes around my house of that I wrote when I was little. I just began and never quit. I always had some story to tell.
Awesome. And then, of course, we've had Rebecca on every single one so far. Rebecca, she is an amazing developmental editor. At least she has a very amazing mind. And I have heard some good things about people she has edited for, and I plan on using her for my own. She runs Heartbound Editing. She is also an amazing writer as well. Can you just tell us a little bit more about your editing journey and writing journey?
Absolutely. So I got into writing early pandemic, and it was very much an escape for me, a way to process recent life events and everything that was happening in the world, and got into editing almost immediately after that. I had like 2 scenes written. I'm like, okay, I need feedback on this. So I did a swap with other authors and found that I had just as much passion for providing feedback and really taking other stories apart as I did for creating my own stories. So I've been doing that for about 5 years now and have absolutely enjoyed every step of the process.
Awesome. Were you guys hearing what was going on my screen for some reason?
Little feedback or something, maybe.
Okay. So sorry about that. It was actually our thing that was showing up because I didn't realize that it was playing live on there, just like with a delay. But anyway, we also have Dawn Marie Manning. She is an avid book lover and writer herself. Dawn, do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So books were my absolute lifeline, my way to escape. On my screen, I look frozen. Am I frozen to you guys too? Okay, I don't know what's going on with my internet.
A little bit, but we can hear you just fine. So
okay, good deal. So I actually come from a very long line of authors on both sides of the family. Mostly very small works, a lot of religious kind of works, but on both my dad's side and my mom's side, there are published authors. So it's very interesting. And even I have 5 brothers and sisters, and every single one of them is an author in their own right. Everything from children's books to novels. My one brother is, he's in the military, and he writes a devotional for military men and women. Just all kind. I have another brother that's about to be published, and his book is going to be made into a movie. So lots and lots of authors in the family. And I found my calling to be a book writer later in life. All of my writing started with processing everything through journaling. And now I turn that into trying to help people. So my first book is almost done. And it's a collection of short stories and poetry intended to be used by therapists as an opportunity to help people describe what they're going through, because a lot of people have trouble figuring out how to put their pain into words. So that's my first book. And then I also have about 5 different romance novels in the works as well. So I'm very excited about that. I'm the mother of 5 children myself, and it's interesting to view the words, the things that I read through the interior world of my children too, and being able to talk, now that they're old enough, being able to talk about some of these books with them as well is an awful lot of fun. So.
All right, thank you very much. And now it's time to turn the spotlight on our author for this evening, who just escaped us. Hi, Myrenne. Hi, Myrenne. She is the author of 3 Coins from a Dead Man's Pocket. Very interesting choice and title, and has created a world filled with compelling characters and a story that has captivated all of us this particular month. Anyway, Myrenne, welcome. Can you just share with us what inspired your story and just a little bit about yourself as well?
Thank you. First of all, can I just say I am really, really humbled and honored to be like in this group with all of you guys, because I don't know any of you in person, and yet we have talked and found our communities online and found all of these connections. And I have something that I connect with each of you a little bit differently. And I just think that is so amazing that we can come together and do this. So just thank you so much for that, because I think it's such a unique thing that we get to do in this day and age, with being able to connect with somebody halfway across the country that we'll probably not meet in person, for 5-10 years, who knows, but we can still be great pals online, which I think is really great, and help each other grow, which I think is amazing. So 3 Coins from Dead Man's Pocket is my debut novel in a steampunk fantasy romance genre. I love steampunk stuff, and I didn't realize that I loved it until I couldn't get enough of things like A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and I stumbled upon a collection of books by an author who's in Australia, and she had 2 huge series that was very steampunky, and I was like, this is great, I need more, and I couldn't find more. And so I really wanted to incorporate all of those cool elements of Victorian clothing, and this idea where there's the new technology is magic, and mixing magic with inventions and tinkerers, and yet mix in fantasy things as well, because those are all the things I love, right? We write what we want to read, right? And so and those are all the things I love. And so when I got the idea, I was actually had just quit my job to be a stay-at-home mom to my twins, who were only 9 months old. I had quit in the middle of December. Yeah, twin moms. Here we go. Me and Agnes
Yep,
are twin
me
moms.
too.
And I just couldn't do it. It was too hard. And I finally just said, no, I'm going to stay home and be with my babies. And I quit in December. And, as a creator, no matter what kind of creator you are, once your brain has enough rest, it will start creating, and it will not leave you alone until you get that creativity out. I don't care if you're an artist or whatever kind of creative person you are. And my brain, just latched onto an idea for a story, and I couldn't let it go. So I started making notes. And when the notes got to be too many pieces of paper, I put a huge piece of butcher paper up on my wall in my hallway, and I started making a timeline, and I would just jot things down, and at 2 a.m. when we were up feeding because everybody was hungry. And, during bath time or whatever time I could kind of sneak away to the hallway and write an idea down. And over a few years, this idea really started to have some meat to it. And I was like, maybe I could do something with this. And so when my twins turned 3 and I enrolled them in 2 days of preschool, I thought, this is what I'm going to do. With my time, I'm going to pursue this. And it took me almost 5 years from the beginning of the idea to actually getting a book printed and a story, really fleshed out. But now I have it. And if you're watching on YouTube Live, here it is. I'm like excited. I'm writing book 2, and it's exciting. And it's just been such a really cool journey to go on and to find something that was really mine in the midst of, kind of being underwater, of being all the mom things and doing all the mom things. And so that it just kind of helped me find who I was in all of that madness.
Okay, so I have a question, and I'm sure that I cannot be the only person. Like, I loved your book, but I have no idea what steampunk is. What is steampunk?
Okay. Yeah. So, a lot of people don't know, and it surprises me how many people don't know. So steampunk is kind of this idea that started in the 1800s with some older writers, and it was the idea of basically London is where it kind of originates, and it's a Victorian style of dress. So you've got the really beautiful corsets, you've got these full skirts, and you also have these gadgets that are filled with gears and that are, if you've ever seen anything like that's a clockwork, like a music box or a clockwork bird or something like that. If you can think of that story of the Emperor and the Nightingale, how the Emperor gets that nightingale and it's a clockwork nightingale. And people who are tinkerers who make those types of things. And there's airships is a big thing that is added in amongst all of that. So those big airships with like the balloons on top, and you see them they're flying, or just different types of things that you've been. I'm sorry about the dog. I think. So anything like that. So even if you were just to Google like steampunk, you would come up with all these really neat costuming, and there's steampunk festivals all over the world. There's steampunk newsletters, there's steampunk genre books. Like I said, there's not very many. And I really think that we're going to start seeing more of it because I feel like we're getting some traction among the fantasy world. So I'm really excited to see how it kind of comes to the surface, so to speak. So I'm really hoping that more people will understand exactly what steampunk is. And I'm going to kind of hop off of that, because when I first started writing, I added magic to these things, these steampunk type things that my characters were creating. And I just thought I kind of made that up. Well, of course I didn't make that up. Somebody else has already done that, right? But what that is called it's called Magitech. And I had no idea that that's what it was called, but it's a mixture of magic and technology. And in a steampunk world, the technology is going to be all of those tinkering type things, or the airships, or whatever it is that they have. And so there's an element of Magitech to my world, which of course I just thought, oh, I'm original. No, I wasn't original, but hey, I liked it, so I put it in there.
Rebecca, do you know anything? Because I know you know a little bit about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and my definition, I love Myron's kind of explanation of the aesthetic of steampunk. The slightly more technical definition of that is that it's an alternate reality, usually late Victorian or early Edwardian, in which steam power was the predominant source of power rather than gasoline or electricity. So that's where the name comes from. And a lot of the tech that you see developed in steampunk stories has a very, Myron's book is a great example of this. It has a very sort of up and down kind of social structure, because that's the direction that steam goes. So you have different technologies that are built on this sort of understanding that in this other reality, this steampunk reality, steam was the predominant power source, and that just sort of shifted history off course into this cool sort of fantasy realm.
I love the academic side that comes out with Rebecca's explanation.
No, I love that too, actually.
And the cerebral side.
When I think of steampunk, I think of Treasure Planet.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
solid.
the clothing and stuff like that.
definitely.
And
All
I'm
right,
also a
so
history nerd, which is part of my interest in steampunk. So like I know like, okay, where does this line up with history? Where does it deviate? Because that's my special niche.
so let's get starting to talk about her particular book. I am going to turn to all of our hosts. I'll have Rebecca go first. Can you just share something that you just really valued about her book that just kind of really stuck out for you?
Absolutely. It is so colorful and vibrant. Like a lot of steampunk that I've read is very sort of grayscale and browns and blah. And that they may still have great stories, but the visualizations of it, the tone of the story, what you get out of it can often feel a little bit sepia tone. If you're a history nerd, you know what that means. But Myron's steampunk was so colorful. It was just rainbows and vibrant all the way through, and there was not a single moment in there that was not interesting and purposeful and doing something cool and colorful.
What about you, Victoria? What were your thoughts?
Okay, she knows I'm going to say this. I was obsessed with the language that she created and could probably talk about it longer than anybody wants to talk about it. But it was so beautifully done and clever. I just loved it.
I really liked how she did it too, like that particular thing, because sometimes people can do it too much, whereas hers was more like a intimacy and like very purposeful, and I thought she did a great job. What about you, Dawn?
So this is okay. First of all, I really did love the book, and I loved the confusion of Thorben when she could see him. He's like, "What?" But when they are getting crazy out in the gazebo, and I was like, Rune's gonna walk out and see them and all of this stuff. And then later, when it was revealed that anytime he touched her, no one could see them, I like laughed out loud. So, and it was before they were in the streets either. It was like when he was like, "Oh, if I pick her up and she disappears, everybody would panic, right?" And I went, "Aha, okay, there we go." I love how things were tied together beautifully, and I love excuse me, Thorben's redemption story. I love his redemption story. That he didn't even give a second thought. He plunged after her, did first, thought later. And I thought that was great.
So that's actually something I want to bring up later. Is I was a Taupe fan.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay. It's
See,
all
that
right.
was
You can be.
yeah.
I am too. It's all right.
So I was feeling sorry for him the whole time. I'm like, okay, Thorben, man. But anyway, what I absolutely loved was the world building. I just thought that I loved the soul element, and I loved the five realms, right? And I really loved the world building. I loved how unique it was, and how like what I think makes a really great fantasy or any kind of book really is when you close the book and you're still thinking about elements from it, or you start to make up your own, because I always am making up stories. If you start making up your own little stories to kind of go along with it, I figure it's a good book. And so I love when it has such a unique world that you can kind of create from that. And that's what I really liked. So now I'm just going to open it up to questions. Does anybody want to go first with the first question for Myrenne?
I would love to. Victoria, you touched on the language. Myrenne, I also loved the language. I first of all would like to hear more how it sounds because I'm not sure that I'm reading it correctly. So what is it how do you pronounce what Thorben called her?
Oh, so yes, he calls her Me Tale, which means my treasure. And to give you a little background on how it's arranged, I guess I should say. So I am learning Spanish, and I learned obviously in English we don't have this, but the accent mark, that's where you give the emphasis. And so I wanted to use that as part of my language, also because I think it's beautifully written when you see that, it's something very unique. And so anytime you see an accented an accented vowel, that is where you're going to put your emphasis. And so when you say Avalina, the I is going to get the emphasis. So me tale, you get the a emphasis on the end. And if you'd like, I could actually read you some of the sayings from the realms. I actually recorded a micro album for the Kickstarter that I did with a local artist, and we've got some recordings of me and her, and actually her husband, reciting some of the Ely poems and the things. So I tell you, if I can, I'll search for it, and if I can find it, I'll. Oh, actually, I think I know where it is. Hold on.
So have you developed an entire language, or is there quite a lot to go for it to be a whole language?
So I used a website called vulgarlang.com, and it helped create the language. And it's not perfect. So I did have to kind of go through, and I do adjust things as I need. So for example, I'm like, well, I need a word for mushroom. And like the output that I got from vulgarlang maybe doesn't have the word for mushroom. And so I kind of roll through things and find something that I feel like would be a good word for that, and make sure it doesn't mean anything else. And then I just kind of insert it. So I actually have a vocabulary of over 4,000 words for my language. And, you know, some of them, like I said, some of them are going to be used and others may not be used. But that's kind of where I started. Find something that I feel like
it's thoroughly exciting. And just to give an idea, my husband is he's a complete nerd geek Trekkie person. And and did you guys know that Klingon is a language that you can learn on Duolingo now?
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
It's an actually recognized language. How excited would you be for your language to become a recognized language?
I mean, that would be like, I feel like I would have arrived at that point, right? That would be so cool. And you know, I also really took a lot of inspiration from the Lord of the Rings Elven language. I mean, that is so beautiful when Arwen speaks it in the movie, and that has never left my brain on how beautiful. And I even saw an interview with her, and she was saying her favorite phrases of Elvish and how much she loved it. Anyway, so I have a few sayings if you want me to say them. These are the sayings of the realms, and every realm has their own saying. I kind of stole the, you know, may the force be with you kind of thing, because I thought I need something for them to say to each other when they're going off and they want to wish good luck, that kind of thing. So, so the realm of souls, the saying is Mayo ya rila baila efusar, which is may your soul fly freely. The Black Sands realm, which we're not getting much of right now, but you'll get more of later. Mayo ya rila rewi bobavar. That is, may your soul burn passionately. And I tried to reflect some of these with the realms. Starfire realm, which you're going to get also more of in a later book. Mayo ya rila ofi dalear, which is may your soul glow brilliantly. Realm of winds is Mayo ya rila aya egar, which is may your soul love deeply. And Mayo ya rila isir okorear, which is may your soul shine brightly, from the light realm, which I'm actually writing a little bit about in book 2 right now. So
in one of my college classes, we actually had to create a language, and we named it fairy language, but we spelled fairy differently. But yeah, we actually had to learn like how syntax is created and how like word order is created, and that was like it was a linguistic class, and that was like 50% of our grade was coming up with this language, and we worked in a group. It was one of those fascinating things, because you don't realize that there's a reason why, you know, we say big red ball, we don't say red big ball, and just like those little things like that. And it's like, you don't even know you're learning that when you're like learning language. But anyway, does anyone, Rebecca, do you have a question?
Yes, and someone already touched on this a little bit. How on earth did you pick between Tobias and Thorben for her to get with? And please tell me you're going to do something with Tobias down the road.
Okay, yes. All right. So you're in luck. Okay. So, you know, all right. So Thorben had 2 jobs. All right. Job number 1 was to get out over himself. because, if you remember Natalia's story about him, he always thought he was better than everyone else. He always thought he was destined for something great. And of course, he got like hoodwinked by this person that he hurt and ended up, being stuck in the liminal plane. And what's funny about this is that he was destined for something great. And because he is the one that, spoiler alert, he is the one that brings all the realms back together and basically saves everybody, even though Ava thought for sure that that was her job, right? And the fact that he does it kind of brings his journey full circle, because he was able to get over himself, like you were saying, Don, to go dive head over heels, like, I'm going to save the woman I love and I'm going to take care of it. And now he even goes that extra step further to make sure not only she is safe, but her family is safe and everyone else is safe. And Toby, I want you to think of Toby and Tobias as kind of like this guy who is so methodical that it gets in the way of his heart. And he and him and Ava had a relationship when they were younger because they all lived out there together, and then when they moved to the city, it kind of fell apart, but they were super young and they were just kind of a young love. And Tobias, he is very methodical in his thinking, very technical in his thinking. And so he has Ava in this box that, that's just where she belongs until something happens, aka Thorben shows up. He doesn't realize how he kind of feels about her until all of a sudden, like, there's this person that is in his space, in Ava's space, and he's not, and then he kind of has to reevaluate how he feels about her. So, so Thorben does a couple of things. I feel like he, obviously he saves the world, he gets over himself, but he also pushes Tobias to like face his feelings a little bit, and he also pushes Ava to kind of go for something that she wants, because she's always spending time taking care of other people. That's her job. Her job as a druid, that's her job. So I don't know. I was really happy with where Thorben ended up, and you're gonna see more of him, but you're also gonna be seeing more of Tobias and Ava. So your wish will be granted, Rebecca. I'm working on it.
Okay, so I have a question for the whole group. Who was anyone else besides me voting or rooting for Tobias, not Thorben? Okay, so it wasn't just me.
I was
Honestly, I was also a little bit rooting for Declan, but that's just because that was probably the most my type of all of the three potential interests there. Yeah.
What about you, Victoria? Who were you rooting for?
Oh, I was Thorben all the way. I'm always going to pick the one that's the trouble. Always going for the trouble.
I was just like, oh, poor Tobias the whole time.
Good. This is all of the emotions that I want. So this is great. I love hearing it. Great.
Well, truthfully, I just wondered how on earth she was going to choose, because obviously she still had feelings for Tobias, but at the same time, the dude was oblivious.
Yep.
Forever. And then you have to wonder, I don't know if this is how you intended to write it, but you have to wonder if a little bit of the bloom of having a new romance with Thorben kind of made him notice her, because when women are touched by that, they kind of bloom a little bit. And so I wondered how much of that came into play, where it's like, oh, wait, it didn't even occur to Tobias that he had her undivided attention until he didn't. And then it's like, oh, wait a second. I sort of always kind of planned on this.
I mean, exactly. They were hanging out. They were designing engines together because that's her hobby, right? Like they were, I mean, physically getting dirty together, like every day, getting covered in grease and, designing these engines. And all he thought about was her in this friend box, right? You're right. You're absolutely right.
I want to hear a little bit from Victoria. Do you have a question for Myrenne?
Yes, I want to know how you came up with Ava's gift. That is so unusual to anything I've ever read. It was beautiful. And the songs. I want you to touch on the songs too.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Two-parter. Okay. So thank you for saying that was beautiful. I feel like when we read a lot of magic stuff, or when we read a lot of like people with magic, let me just say, you get a lot of elements, right? You get a lot of wind and earth and fire and that kind of thing, which is all cool. But I thought, what is it that we don't get very much of? And when I came up with the when the title, this whole thing came from the title. So when I came up with this a sentence, or I heard it somewhere, and I can't really remember where, I wish to goodness I could remember. And it was 3 coins from a dead man's pocket, and all of a sudden I had questions like, well, whose pocket are they in, and why are they there, and why are they important? And that was the question that stuck, right? Why are these 3 coins important? And then I got to thinking, well, what if something was connected to these coins? And then I thought, well, what is the most precious thing that you would never want to get rid of, never want to go away? And that is who we are. That is our true selves, the thing that makes us who we are, right? Our very essence. And I thought, okay, well, if there are souls in these coins, who put them there? So then I had to figure out, well, who does that? If you've ever read like Shannara Chronicles or anything like that, there is a druid in there. MTV actually did a little show on Shannara Chronicles. They didn't finish it because it's MTV, but anyway, so druids, that's what druids do. They have this druidic magic that guides souls, or that guides, the essence, that kind of thing. And so I thought, well, what if I gave that ability, that as a magic ability, to somebody? And I wanted it to be, I wanted to give her a special name. So I didn't want to give her a druid name. And I swear to you, every time I type druid or druis, no matter where it is, Word or Google or somebody comes up and says, do you want this to be druid? And I'm like, no. She is a female druid who has this ability to guide souls. And I wanted it to be a very unique ability, I guess I should say. Even though there are other druises and druids, but for her it was unique because she had been put into Empyrean for safekeeping until such a time, right? Until the time she was needed again, when Rune could bring her back out. And for that, I needed Rune to be able to move her soul into different bodies. So it gave me a lot of opportunities to play with different things too. I could take this soul and take it out of a person and take it out of a woman and put it in a man, and it's still the same person, right? And so it gives me a lot of room to play with gender roles and that kind of thing. And so yeah, I felt that she needed that. So what was your part 2 question?
It's about the songs.
Oh, the songs. Okay. So yeah, I have a degree in music. That is my trade. I used to be a band director and a choir director. And so I wanted to incorporate music somehow. And I thought, well, what better way to incorporate music than a singing druid who guides souls with her song and her voice? And so I just combined it all. And then when I'm going to have to send all of you a code well, Victoria, you already have it. I think maybe. Did you get it? You don't get you didn't get the micro album. Okay. So I'm going to send you all a code so you guys can listen to the micro album that I recorded with a local artist and her husband who like writes operas. Like, they're just amazing. And you guys can hear the language. You can hear the songs that we wrote. There's a theme song in there. It's just really cool. So that's why I wanted a musical element in there. And then it's going to happen again in book 2 because the prince of the underworld plays a flute. So,
is he cute? I'm just curious.
Do you expect me to write ugly characters? No way.
I love the way, first of all, the whole singing aspect just totally warms my heart with this whole thing. As I'm a musical person too, but to have all the spells sung, I'm not sure that that's something I've really encountered in anything I've read before. So to me, I really love that aspect of it. I loved that she would know what to sing because it would just swell inside her. And I don't know if any of the rest of you have ever felt that, where you just had the song stuck in you and you just had to sing it because you couldn't stop with hearing it in your head until it came out. And that to me is what it felt like when she was doing spells.
Good.
And so I'm getting that that's what you were kind of going for.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's part of her. That's part of her intuition, right? Like, each soul. Like, if you even the first chapter, she's singing to a particular soul, and those words are part of her magic that she knows what that soul needs to hear. right? It's just like if you're singing to your child when they're sick and they want to hear a certain song, and that makes them that comforts them, right? And it's kind of the same thing where she has that intuition as part of her druidic magic, that she knows what that soul needs to hear so that it will be able to move on, or even be collected so that it can move on.
I know that one of the themes, or at least I felt like one of the themes of your book were about like fate and choice. How do you think that played a role in your particular novel? Am I seeing that, or is that something like no one else picked up on?
I don't know. Did anybody else pick up on that?
Mm-hmm. I feel like I did. You definitely played with that a bit in just what she was fated to do and versus what she was choosing to do. I'm with you on that, Angie.
Okay, awesome. I love that you brought that up, and that's going to be a hard question for me to answer, but you're right. Because she did think that she'd been told her entire life that you have been saved for this moment. And we knew this moment was coming, and that's why I brought you back. And this is why you're here, because you're the most powerful druis in the realms. And then all of a sudden it was taken away. And so now, and you'll see a little bit of this in book 2, she's kind of angry. She's like, well, I don't understand. I thought I was supposed to be doing this, but now I'm not, even though the dude that I loved did it for me. I'm kind of angry at him because I thought that was my job. And now I'm just listless. I don't know what to do with myself. So yeah, I mean, whenever you get those stories of the prophecy, right? Like, I love a good prophecy story, but what if the prophecy doesn't happen? You know, what happens after, right? And so I kind of wanted to play a little bit with that too, but I also want her to know that she is in charge of her destiny. And yes, she gets to choose. And if she wants to choose that prophecy, then fine. But in this particular instance, you know, Thorben was the better choice, and the realms kind of accepted that. And the ancient souls tied to the realms accepted him, and that kind of hurts her feelings. So, but it's okay, because she's going to have a chance to make up for it in book 2.
I do love how choice is intertwined in all of this. She gives the souls choice. Everything is about choice, and I love how you honored how important choice is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Victoria, did you have any other questions you wanted to ask?
Sort of for you, Myrenne, but also everyone else. Did anybody else, every time Rune came on the page, did your heart just sort of swell and just get excited?
I did love her character just because of the love she had for Ava.
Yeah, I wanted her to be like that feel good, like, oh, Rune's there, everything's going to be fine.
Right. I was, I'm still worried about her though, even at the end of the book, because she still is a soul stuck in a body that isn't her own. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm still worried for her.
That's a good worry. Hold on to that.
Rebecca, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. One of them is about your world building, which I always find to be like one of the most present aspects of steampunk and particularly Magitech. I'm just curious, like, what was your guiding principle in creating a world where they clearly have an awareness of like atoms and molecules, but the pistol was just invented? Like, where were you like finding those lines and you know, coming up with ways to combine different, what I consider very disparate aspects of that world building, especially around tech?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So even though we have all this magic happening, and we have these fantasy elements in this world, I also wanted I wanted these tinkers, especially Tobias, to really have room to grow and invent new things. So when they make the engine that goes really fast, right? Or anytime they like hop on a boat and go somewhere. You know, I wanted people to understand that even though this is steam powered, right? And technically it takes a while for water to heat up and the water to boil and blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to mess with any of that. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to cut out that middleman and we're going to make it magical. So, so anytime you get any kind of steampunk ship or any kind of device that would use steam power, you're really going to get it's actually a magical, it's a magic tech kind of instrument, right? Where we've got technology happening, but yet it also has the magic into it. And so that would give Tobias and any other kind of tinkerer some room as long as they were working with a mage, because Tobias doesn't have any magical abilities. He's just really, really smart. And that would give him room and give some other tinkerers room to really explore different types of inventions and take those inventions to the next level of, you know, of what's the word I'm looking for? Like the next level of creativity, and allow that to happen. So yeah, like all of a sudden we're like, oh, what is that? Like it's a pistol that's cool, you know, but nobody else has it, right? Like that's a new invention for them. And you know, you'll see different things in different worlds where we'll go to a different realm and all of a sudden you're like, hey, we don't have that in our realm. Like, how did that show up here? You know, and because this tinker is paired with a different mage or a different type of mage, right? So metallurgist mages can do metal work, and you know, fire mages or anything else, they do certain kinds of work that can make any kind of invention something unique, that maybe you wouldn't get in a different kind of steampunk world, if that makes sense.
John, do you have another question?
I want to talk about their little scandalous thing in the middle of the city street. Because I sat there like, oh, he's peeling her clothes off. And as soon as he drops them, people can see them. Someone's stealing her clothes. I'm telling you right now.
Not coming.
I knew that was going to happen. I was like, oh, there it goes. There's her pants. Goodbye, you know. But I was rooting for Tobias at the beginning. However, I think that Tobias is too concrete for her. I think that he is too tied, less to magic and more to concrete things, that it actually would have held her back a little bit. Not because he would have wanted to, but because she would have done it to herself. But Thorben pushed her. He pushed her into areas she wasn't entirely comfortable with. Not all the time, not like he was saying, you know, coercing her to do things she didn't want to do, but he was saying, you are so much more capable than you think you are. And that was something that Tobias was saying, oh yeah, you're really good at, you know, making this, you know, doing all this tinkering and stuff. You're really good at that and you are talented in that area. He wouldn't have known how to push her in her abilities. Does that make sense?
No, that makes great sense. I'm so glad that you said that, because, you know, I have to say, all of your comments, I'm like, yes, something came across that I was trying really hard to do, and I wasn't sure how I was doing. And also sometimes you guys say stuff and I go, oh my gosh, they're right, you know, like, and I didn't even realize it sometimes, but no, Dawn, you're absolutely right. Like, Tobias is a very straight-laced kind of guy, and when magic, like his twin sister has magic, and he kind of understands that, but as a person, like, it does not enter his realm in his world, because it's not part of who he is, right? However, Thorben is entrenched in it, and when his magic does come back, it comes back full force, double the force, because, you know, he hasn't used it for so long. And so you're right. I wanted Thorben to push her to do things that she wouldn't have done. And you're absolutely right. If Tobias and she had gotten together right at the beginning, I feel like he may have held her back when it came to her knowing her abilities. But Thorben knew all along, right? He was like, she is something special because she can see me. So there is something going on here. And I wanted Thorben to push Ava to do things and to grow and to take chances. And in book 2, we're going to see more of her taking those chances and and kind of just throwing her hands in there and going, you know what have I got to lose at this point? I'm just going to do it all.
But
Because I feel like she's very careful until then.
Yeah, it seems like it's part of his nature because he did the same thing with his sister. And even though he was ornery, and I will tell you, 10 years of having no one be able to see you can give you enough grief to help you learn and grow. You know, like he needed that to become the person he needed to be.
I will give you that, but I'm still rooting for Tobias. I'm very sad for him. I think I like the strong and steady guy.
That's
so
okay.
maybe it's because I married the strong and steady guy. And I love that about him. And I'm still rooting for Tobias. I don't care what you guys are saying.
Okay, hold on to it. Just hold on to it. It's all right. Hang in there.
But the thing about Thorben was that I think that there was a little bit before when he was so ornery, there was always this longing and this desire to be something more than he was. Mm-hmm. And he shifted that longing and desire. It felt like to me, shifted it into longing and desiring those he cares about to be all that they're able to be, including his sister. And everybody that he ends up caring about. He's like, you can do anything. So go for every little bit of yourself that you can draw from and be as strong as you can be. And I actually, that appealed to me a lot.
As we wrap this up, I want everybody to have a chance to ask one more question. Victoria, do you have another question for Myrenne?
I do. I have one. I want to talk about the paper, the world building that you did across your wall. And what I want to talk about, what I want to know is, how did you, because I use dry erase boards and they're all hidden inside the doors of my closet, but it's a similar process. But you used an entire wall, and I want to know where you came to that conclusion that that's the best way to go.
Well, since we're live on YouTube, I could take you on a field trip to my walls if you'd like. Okay, here we go. All right, walk with me. Probably some dogs accompany us. Okay, so the reason I did it is because I never had a moment where it made it easy for me to write things quickly. Because when you've got kids running around and you're doing all the things, you're just like, oh, I've got an idea. I keep a pencil handy, I grab it, I write it down, and we move on. So here is the first one. This was book one right here. And this is my hallway. It was very, very long. It goes the entire length of my house. And this is book two right now. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. This is book two right now.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I've got all kinds of scribbles and note paper and colors. And this is the prequel that I started and didn't finish. Maybe one day I'll finish it. So there's a tour of my hallway. Here, there you go. See how long?
I think that's wonderful.
So cool.
So yeah, it's like a pencil, the mechanical pencils. I just kept it like hooked up on the paper. And I had an idea, I would just jot it down because that was easy for me at the time. I thought I need something that's up away from little hands, that will not get wiped off, right? If I had a whiteboard, it would get totally wiped off. And I needed it high enough to where nobody could mess it or erase it or anything like that. And so I'll tell you what, it at first was taped up and then it wouldn't stay. And then I got the hot glue gun out. So now they are all hot glued to my walls.
Well, it led to such vibrant world telling. Like it paid off to hot glue it to your wall.
I'll tell my husband that. I'll tell him that. But it comes down and it comes down with it.
My husband is very particular. I don't think he would let me do that unless it was in a room that was like my office that no one else was in. Because I'm so proud of him for allowing that.
Yeah, he doesn't tell me no very often. I was telling my brother, I think he told me no once about 19 years ago. And that so he doesn't tell me no very often.
I do have to say my husband probably wouldn't say no, but I know he would be like,
yeah, you get that face.
And then I would feel bad. because my husband's the same way. He does not say no to me. Like I could ask him for, like, my best friend's dad died recently. And so I just looked at him and I go, honey, can you just watch the kids for a whole weekend while I take my best friend on a trip? And he's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, so the next weekend, literally the next weekend, I left him with all the kids and just left. And he said yes. That's so yeah.
Aw,
My husband would
that's
say yes. I would also get that, like,
Yep. I think we all know that look.
I wanted to ask really quickly, like I've never heard of your process, your writing process before, Myrenne. I've never heard, and I think it's wonderful. And I really loved your maps at the beginning. Rebecca and Victoria, what does your writing process look like?
I was going to ask that.
Yes.
Mine looks very different. For starters, like when I see your butcher paper up there, my first thought is I couldn't rearrange it easily. Like that bothers me so much. My creative process I do in Google Docs, and I make heavy use of, bookmarks and headers and all of this sort of stuff. And a big part of my outlining process is copying and pasting whole sections and just moving it around that way. So whenever I see someone with any kind of physical process like that, be that notebooks or butcher paper or whiteboards or whatever you've got going, the sense of it has to stay in that order without it getting really messy and confusing to try to reorder it really bothers me. So I'm 100% a digital person.
I'm a digital person too. I actually do both Google Drive or Google Docs, and I have Sheets, Google Sheets. And
Yep,
so like
same.
I have like because I have a lot of magical creatures, and I have to remember, like, because not all of them are exactly the way that they are in other books. And so then I have to write the details. And then I have charts of like kind of like family, although they're not technically family, like how everybody is related. And so like I have lots and lots of sheets in Google Drive.
And I'm a mixture of both. I have all the Google Docs and Sheets and all of that. I have notebooks, and then I have, just like her wall, I have dry erase boards. But unfortunately, I don't have just one big one. It's a whole bunch of them, and I put like a different character and all of anything and everything, all of their attributes on each one, so that when you build very big worlds, you have a lot of characters, and you might not remember what Susie did 400 pages ago. You just don't remember, but I can just look up and there it is and go from there. So mine's a combo.
So for me, I think of an idea for one of my stories and I put it in Notepad on my phone. Because I'm dealing with aphasia and memory loss due to my health issues, but we won't get into. But if I don't make a note immediately, I'm in trouble. I will forget it. But then I have to write it out physically before I type it. If I do not write it out physically, I cannot order my thoughts. And I've always been that way. I tell people writing chose me, not the other way around. I have to write everything out in my cursive, which is beautiful. And I write the whole thing out and then I can type it, because it's like my brain puts it all in order and makes it sound the way that I want it to as I'm physically doing it. And then I can write it out on my computer.
So as a room full of writers, I do have to ask this. Does anybody feel like they actually chose writing, or does all of you feel like me and Dawn do, that writing chose us, not the other way around?
I chose writing.
You chose writing.
So before I came to writing, I thought I was going to have a career in costuming and historical clothing reproduction, that sort of stuff. But as soon as I actually started getting some success in that and getting paid for it, all of my joy for it went out the window. So I knew I wanted a creative pursuit. I wanted one where I could use the imagination that I've always had, that is really, really involved. So I would very intentionally pursued writing, and I had decided that I wanted to be a career fiction writer before I had ever written a full-length novel. So I'm the other side of that. I chose writing and found the passion through pursuing it rather than the other way around.
And that's really interesting, Rebecca, because writing is one of the few things that you can be full-on creative, and being able to sell it doesn't ruin the fun of it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's been my experience, which has been wonderful.
Ah, lovely.
I think part of it is that I can make one and then sell infinitely rather than, oh, I made a dress and now it belongs to that person and only they ever get to wear it again. So I very much feel that particular divide on it as well, which I think is a big part of why writing has really connected with me and been something that I can continue forward.
And you can sell it and it's still entirely 100% yours.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
What about you, Myrenne?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off what she said because, you know, as a teacher, when I was teaching, you know, you'd go to work every day and you would get paid for the work you did that day, right? You get paid by the day or whatever it is, you know, your contract days. And when those contract days are up, the money's up, right? And you got to do it all over again. And when I quit teaching to stay home with my children, I thought, what can I do that will give me joy? You know, that like she said, that will still be mine and that I can do it once and then I can multiply that over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? And I've always written, like even when my oldest, who is now 12, when she started preschool as a 3-year-old, I would go to the library and I would write. Now that book didn't make it anywhere because after a while I was like, oh, that's terrible. Maybe I'll go back to it. But I was like, oh yeah. And then, you know, but I always wrote, even when I was little, like even when I was like a 5th grader, I would write 12 pages of a story that we really were only required to write 1 page, you know, and the teacher would be like, that's a 12-page story. Are you sure you're going to read it to the class? And I'm like, yes. Even back then I made up my own languages. So
See, I'm not so sure that you chose writing, though. I have a feeling that writing chose you. So
maybe it did. I don't know. Maybe it was the one creative avenue I didn't I don't know. It was my last creative avenue that I hadn't tried yet. Because I also make costumes. I also do all those things and quilt and, you know, and sew and, you know, I'm naturally creative. So yeah, maybe it just kind of spiraled me in. I don't know.
How about
you,
you,
Victoria? Did writing choose you or did you choose writing?
Writing. Ooh, you know, I was just born into it. It definitely chose me. I got it generationally. I have many writers in my family. My mother's a fabulous writer, and we have more from there. Writing's just been such a big part of my life, but I will say this. I also make historical costumes, and I do all of we have an Etsy shop. Right now, I have on my porch 10 faux pumpkins that people have paid me to carve for them for Halloween.
Oh, and they're beautiful. Oh my gosh, I saw your pictures on Facebook. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she did those.
Angie, are you the only person in here that's not a seamstress?
That is correct.
It's that avenue of creativity. You just can't stop it.
See, that's what I was going to
I think
you. Go ahead, Victoria. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I just think that creativity just kind of has to come out in some way. And I think writing for me is the first choice. It's the thing I love the most. I love it so much. But I'm also not very good at sitting still. And so if I'm not writing, you can bet I'm making something else.
So, go ahead.
Let's going back to the book. I do want to ask Rebecca, do you have another question for Myrenne?
I did have one more jotted down. Obviously, I've read 2 previous versions of this book, which it's so cool to read through now this version going, oh, she changed that. Oh, she changed that. Oh, that changed too. And on that more sort of developmental side of things, I did have one question. Do you view defeating Rey on the airships or restabilizing the realms as the climax of the book? Because they're both like equal contenders in my mind, and I cannot for the life of me pinpoint which one was supposed to be the climax. I can name which one I think was the climax, but I'm curious what you say.
So you know how when you're reading a story, you know, you're right. You have that moment where it's the climax. Let me see. There's an image. Yes, right here. Look, I have an image. Like, yeah. So yeah, like you're like, oh, everything's okay, and we're done. So I wanted it to be like, oh my gosh, here's the climax of the book, and then we've got, I don't know, 100 pages left. It's like, oh no, what's gonna happen now? Right? Like I wanted readers to be like, wait, I thought that was it. what's going on now? And so in my mind, I really feel like the saving of the realms is more important because everybody otherwise would die. But for Ava, the fact that this moment happened, that she failed, right? We always talk about how our characters have to fail spectacularly, that she absolutely failed in stopping Ray from taking down the Purdas. She views the loss of those souls very, very personally, because those souls will never get to Empyrean. They will never have another life. They are completely gone. And so the loss of all of those souls, she feels like it's her fault. But on the flip side, the fact that he took down those Purdas and now the realms are all together, we have this brand new opening of the world that is going to flourish. And if she hadn't failed at that moment, none of this other stuff would have happened. And so I saw a quote somewhere that said, bad guys are always trying to change the world and the good guys are always trying to stop them. They're always trying to stop the change. And I thought, God, that is so right. So even though she's the good person, right? She's our heroine, and she failed and the bad guy succeeded in the change, but yet there is still good on the flip side of the change. Because now all of a sudden we were confined to our soul realm unless you were able to get passage through the portal. And if you look at the map, you can see where those portals are, because they're of course controlled by who else? The government. And so and all of a sudden the government doesn't have this monopoly on travel any longer. And the things that were really hard to get, like other things from other realms, and even visiting family for 1,000 years that we have lost touch with, right? Because the world has come apart. All of a sudden, all those avenues are opened, and you're going to see more of that in the worlds to come. So I didn't want to just be about these people and their lives and what they were doing. I wanted it to be more global. I wanted it to be, where is the economy going to go now, right? Like, what's going to happen to trade? What's going to happen to all of these people who can now travel and get the spices and get the meds and get all the stuff, and all of these fantastic mages that were only stuck in their realm that can now move and travel freely. You're going to get a glimpse of Avalina's mom, who has been put in a new cadaver. You're going to get a glimpse of her going back to her original realm to see what's left of her tribe, in her book, and to find out, what else, what does she have to do as a member of a surviving tribal family, and on that realm. So, you're going to get to see all of that. And Declan will show up in book 3 just for you, Rebecca. Declan will be there. Yay!
When does book 2 come out?
Well, I'm writing right now. My goal is to have it to a developmental editor by December. But I am struggling to find time to write, just because, momming is hard. So, and finding time to write is hard. So I'm on about chapter 15 right now. And I want this to be, I feel like there's more in this book, and I want this book to be even bigger, and even more involved than book 1, because I've learned so much from writing book 1. And I feel like my writing's already better. I look back at book 1 and I think, oh, I could have written that better,
Universal experience right there.
Yeah.
Even Brian Sanderson says his very first published work is not his greatest, right? Like, he's like, oh, that's not very good. Don't start there. It's okay, but don't start there.
Truthfully, if you look back at this work as not being your greatest, then we have so much to look forward to coming from you in the future, because this was really, really beautifully written. It was very, very well done, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. So, and you clearly are talented, and I can't wait to read Victoria's book, and Rebecca's book was amazing. And I'm just like, yeah, I just got my little therapist help thing with all these little short stories, but, but I'm very excited to see what you're going to be putting out next. And hopefully, are we going to be doing more of her books in the future, Agnes?
Well, I'm going to try to stick to the first of books. So
Okay.
that way, just because I want to get people into the books, into the series. So if she starts another series, maybe.
Well, I have 2 more series churning up here and in notes on my phone, but I'll probably be 50 by the time I get there.
Well,
So
we'll
we'll
all be right here with you.
Before we wrap up, I do want to make sure that nobody has any last question for Myrenne before we close.
Oh, it was just really, really well done. And I enjoyed it very much. You tied all the loose ends together, which I love. I like loose ends to be tied. And I'm just really excited to see what you have coming out next.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. Makes all the hard work worth it.
Well, anything from Rebecca or Victoria before we go?
I just want to say your Steam is amazing. and I say that both objectively as a developmental editor and subjectively as someone who really liked the voyeuristic stuff. So absolutely full points on that.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you so much. And Rebecca was really good at giving me some really good pointers when it comes to the developmental editing side of things. Like she read it and she's like, okay, here are all the things. Here's 16 pages of notes that I have for you. I was like, oh my gosh. But it was great. Like it was great. And your notes helped create this and made it better. So thank you for that. I mean,
You're very welcome.
I couldn't have done it without them, for sure.
Yeah, and I wanted to piggyback off of Rebecca this time because I don't know how many versions I read of this book, and I mean I've got it here. I love this book, but I want to say I can't wait to read all the future versions of whatever you write. That's how good this book was.
Yes,
you guys, that's so good. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you all, especially you, Myrenne, for coming. Next month, October 29th at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then you can go down from there or up from there, depending on where you live. We are going to go live with Victoria Clapton's book. Do you mind just giving us the title and synopsis of your book one last time?
Yeah. Sure. The book is called Of Myth and Memento Mori. It is a Halloween autumn-inspired paranormal romance with a little bit of a ghost story hidden in there. It takes place in Appalachia. Without giving away any of the plot, it is truly the most Halloween fun thing I could write, but keep it without being horror. It's not scary, but it's kind of spooky.
I'm very excited. I thought it was very appropriate that Myrenne actually is the one that recommended you. And I was kind of excited when I found out, ooh, she has a Halloween one. So anyway, and don't forget, next week we'll be kicking off our first ever Fantasy Geek Out session where we will be discussing Fourth Wing. I know at least one of you guys have signed up, and I have a couple other people that are either interested or have actually already signed up. There's a few slots left. If you're a fan of dragons, magic, or just good fantasy adventure, we still have a couple openings there. So thank you all for being part of tonight's book club. And we'll see you next time with Victoria. And if you guys can just stay on while I try